Hello, and welcome to the series premiere of Technology in the Arts 2.0, at least Series 2 premiere, Episode 1 on August 5th, 2013. My name is Brian Kelly, and I'm joined by my good friend John Lemazny. John, how are you doing?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you. So we're back for 2013 officially. Technology in the Arts had our special Art All Night episode back in June. But now we're going to start a 10-episode run. I think there's going to be a week off for Labor Day. We haven't really discussed that yet, but Labor Day is going to throw a kink in the works here. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But we're going to do another 10-episode run, hopefully, and we're going to spend those weeks exploring the connections between technology and art. John, I guess it's been a few weeks since I've talked to you. What have you been up to lately?
Well, one of the things that's been keeping me busy has been an ongoing series of classes at Princeton Public Library. I just had one tonight. And if you are interested in the free technology classes at Princeton Public Library and you happen to be in the area, their website, of course, has a fantastic calendar of events. And I've been very lucky to have that relationship with them. I would say that I'm there almost every other week giving some presentation on some technology topic, and they're very, very good about keeping an ear out for what the public wants, and we've been very lucky to have packed rooms for the most part. Tonight, there are 12 seats in the room, and we had between 25 and 30 people in the room. So
Nice.
it was a great opportunity. Tonight's topic was Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and the Make movement. And there were a lot of people there who did not have Raspberry Pis, did not have Arduinos, but were very excited about the topic and the content. And I think that after the discussion, there are probably a lot of people who are going to stop into Radio Shack tomorrow or stop into LadyAda.net or Arduino.cc and see if they can spend their, $35 and get a device to play with.
Why don't you explain what Raspberry Pi and Arduino are for people who
Sure,
may be the uninitiated of our audience?
absolutely. So if you are more of a reading learning type, you might want to visit lemazny.com, where I did a write-up a little bit about the things that I'm talking about tonight. But an Arduino is a programmable board. It has a processor on it and some pins that you can send signals in and send signals out, input and output signals, through sensors, through scripting, and through events. So, for example, let's say that I wanted in this room to have ambient light based on temperature be affected. Let's say that as it got warmer in here, I wanted to have the lights go down because the lights might affect the heat, and I wanted to maybe also take this fan and turn it on as soon as the temperature hit a certain level. Well, there are sensors that you can buy at Radio Shack or other places that essentially just pay attention to the temperature in the air and humidity in the air. There are humidity sensors. There are lots of different kinds of sensors. And matter of fact, there are humidity sensors in newer phones because it can pay attention to the humidity in the air and maybe make you aware of it, in addition to a weather app that pays attention to weather stations in the area. There are also sensors that you could have right in your phone that might alert you to maybe stay hydrated or something like that. So anyway, I can take an Arduino, plug in this temperature or humidity sensor, and then send instructions to the Arduino that say, if the sensor sends a signal that the temperature has, during this minute, every minute I would check the sensor. If it sends a signal back that says that it's more than 72 degrees, send out a signal to this fan over here and turn it on. And keep checking every minute to see if the temperature goes down, the ambient temperature in the room. And the minute the temperature goes down below a certain degree, then turn off the fan. So, which is very much the way the thermostat works. But because we're using Arduino, we can have sensible programming behind it. We can say, do some other things too. If the temperature continues to increase steadily over the next 10 minutes, then turn on the air conditioning, or turn off the lights, or maybe give me an alert. If the temperature goes above a certain amount, I want you to send me a signal and say, you really need to do something. You need to open the windows, or you need to, whatever, break out the ice or something if it continues to get too warm. So it really takes the idea of what we've become accustomed to with a phone, where we have certain sensors, camera, temperature sensor, oscilloscope, gyroscope, other kinds of sensors that we have in our phones, and allows you to build on top of that to make precisely exactly what you might want, which is the idea of the make movement, not necessarily relying on what comes off the shelf, but rather deciding what you would make in your own product if you decide to make it. And yeah, there's a learning curve. You're going to need to read some books, you're going to need to watch some videos, you might even need to talk to an expert. But there are benefits in all those things. There are benefits to learning, extending yourself, and not relying on Apple or any other company to develop the tool that you want, but rather determining the tool that you want for yourself and making it yourself. So taking both of those ideas aside, Make and Arduino, and going to the Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a $35 computer, and it runs many operating systems, including Android, including Linux, including many variants of Linux. And all it needs to do is be able to run on a SD card. So if you can fit it on 64 gigabytes of space, or 32 gigabytes of space, or 4 gigabytes of space, then you can run whatever Linux-based operating system or Android-based operating system on your Raspberry Pi. And then once you have it running, you can do all the things you would expect to do with your desktop computer. Like, I'm on Linux right now, and I'm talking to you over video conferencing because all of these things happen within the Chrome browser. I can run Chromium, I believe I can run Chromium on an ARM-based processor, and Raspberry Pi is an ARM-based processor, ARM. Mm-hmm. So as long as your operating system runs on ARM, it will run Raspberry Pi, and then once you have it up and running, you have a $35 computer that can show a desktop to a screen or a monitor. It can send audio out. It can act as a server, like a media server. So you could take an external hard drive, connect it via USB to this $35 device, and have your 2 terabytes of movies, music, images, and everything else waiting to be loaded into this. You could run a website, for example, that serves all that data. So, and you could even have it be wireless. So you could carry it around in your backpack and have all your friends be able to connect to your media server wirelessly and listen and watch whatever, movies, music, etc. So you might have a bag that has your Raspberry Pi in it and an external hard drive and wireless connectivity and a battery, a large battery, and have it be essentially a portable media server that anybody who's within 10 feet of you could connect to and watch whatever media you have available. The possibilities are endless. It really is limited with your creativity and imagination.
It's funny when you said getting sensors and going to Radio Shack, and it's funny that every time I tell somebody I'm at Radio Shack, and it's usually to get something for an adapter or microphone, and people like look at me like I have 3 heads, that I'm going to Radio Shack, and they're surprised that Radio Shack still exists. But I'm glad that there is something out there now that's kind of making them relevant to at least to some extent, and I just think that's funny that we're kind of coming back to that.
Well, you and I, as geeks, I think we're self-proclaimed geeks. I mean, but other people probably call us geeks too. We would be more likely than the average person maybe to end up at Radio Shack. Plus, we're male. which makes us more likely to end up at Radio Shack. And we're technologists, which makes us more likely to end up at Radio Shack. But this kind of thing doesn't necessarily include those requirements. Makers, there are many female makers. There are many female people who are female and non-geeks who are interested in electronics and other things. So I think this is an opportunity to maybe broaden Radio Shack's horizons and give it another reason. I was so amazed when I walked in there the first time and saw their whole Arduino section, you know, where you can buy 7 different kinds of Arduinos. But it makes sense because they've been selling sensors forever. But
well, even going back to like the old electronics kits that they used to sell, you know, it was for
right.
kids.
Exactly right. And Arduino is essentially an electronics kit for kids, for any age.
It's like the next generation.
Right. It's like the Picard version.
The Picard version.
Yeah.
Well, anything else on your end?
No, I mean, we're going to talk about some other topics, but that'll sort of connect with this. But that was my and tonight was the first time I was teaching that particular class at Princeton Public Library, although I've had the great benefit of teaching many classes, Android classes, Chrome OS classes, classes about presentations. This fall I'm going to be teaching a class on design, and it's just been I'm very, very grateful for that institution because they've allowed me to extend my audience and talk about topics that are very near and dear to me and are obviously important to them and their audience too.
So when you're doing a presentation on presentations, does like a presentation wormhole open and swallow the whole of space and time?
You know, I'm going to ignore your joke there, and I'm going to say that the most fun is having people walk into a presentation on presentations, and when they find out that I am not going to either open or talk about PowerPoint.
No PowerPoint.
Some people are very excited about that idea, and some people are very upset about that idea. You know, they see PowerPoint as the be-all and end-all of presentations, but it's not.
I've recently seen some really bad PowerPoint.
It's not hard to do. I mean, the way that it's set up is really built to make bad presentations.
I mean, this was 37 slides, and there were like...
For a 15-minute presentation.
Right. Well, this guy had about a half hour, but like 20 minutes, you know, 10 minutes for Q&A, and it's like 5 minutes had gone by. He was on slide 4.
Yeah.
And I said I had to go get somebody. I'm like, look, we need to get in touch with the people on the stage here, and you know, he had to skip through a lot towards the end, but it was like whole paragraphs. You know how my podcast scripts are so detailed? Like, think of that like multiplied by 100. I mean,
I'm completely ignoring the fact that the show notes tonight are an example of that. Your show notes are so detailed, and we're so far off the script already.
No, we haven't just gotten to that point. My personal stuff is going to be short, so once I get to that, we can move on to your topic. So on my end, basically, I'm slowly doing some new music, but I guess one of the things that might actually get out in the open before I actually get some new music done is recently I played accordion on a Yoko Ono cover song, cover of Silver Horse by Yoko Ono.
Cool.
Recorded by my friend Christian Beach for a upcoming tribute album that's going to be released by New Jersey-based Main Man Records, and he's done a bunch of covers for them in the past. And I'm pretty sure I can come out and say that because the guy I've seen press about it already. So so that's going to be one of the. Hopefully, if we get it done. Actually, there's some backing vocals we need to add, but I think we actually recorded this ahead of schedule. So.
So just so I understand, are you saying it's a
Yoko Ono tribute album?
Yoko Ono tribute album. Got it.
Yes, she's actually 80 years old this year.
That's amazing. She's an amazing artist. I mean, she's done some
Yeah.
incredible things.
And so the song Silver Horse has been covered by Paul Simon and Harry Nilsson, so among others. And it's actually, it's upon first listen, it's kind of a weird song, but as you listen to it, it's a very interesting song. And we, of course, with Christian, we gave it a little more bluesy feel, obviously with accordion on it. There was no accordion in the original version, but it sounds interesting. So I can't wait for that to reach the light of day, and I think that's going to come out in the fall. Sometimes their release schedules get a little messed up, but hopefully that'll be available to share. Like I said, we still have to do some backing vocals for it. Um,
Yeah, maybe we'll have an opportunity to include a clip.
it would be nice maybe to have Christian on again at some
Yeah.
point. We had him on in our original iteration of the Technology in the Arts podcast, so see if he can get him back on again. So, all right, but that's oh, and of course I have to get it in. Uh, I love the casting of Peter Capaldi as the next Doctor on Doctor Who, and that's it. That's all I will say. Um, but you knew I had to get Doctor Who in, and I will always do that. So we're coming to I guess what we used to call our in focus or in perspective segment, where we kind of picked the topic and talked about it more in depth. And John, you have a few things about surprise, surprise, Google.
Yeah.
So
Well,
why don't you start off on what you want to say tonight?
so there is some speculation going on about um, the changes that are going on with Google between their Glass hardware and their recent launch through Motorola, and since their acquisition of Motorola Mobile Mobility, of the Moto X phone, which is really the focus of that phone is to have an always-on version of Google Now. So the phone is basically always listening for you to say, "Okay, Google Now," and it goes, sort of
Mhm.
like Star Trek. Speaking of Star Trek, this idea that you always have a computer sitting there listening for you to get its attention and then command it, right? So all those times when it was sort of strange and ethereal to watch, these captains say, "Computer," and I go, "Yeah," and say, what's the distance between us and that enemy starship or whatever. But this
I'm sorry,
idea,
I laugh when you say computer because it reminded me of one of my favorite podcasts, Mustache Rangers, which has a wise ass computer on it. So they go computer, and it's like, so, okay, sorry.
so, but this idea, I think that Google uses science fiction for a lot of its inspiration for the way that it causes its interactions to happen. I think it's behind a lot of their um, self-driving cars. I think it's behind a lot of the surprising ways that it sort of magically determines what it is that we're actually looking for when we do a search because the algorithm is that good. And so anyway, there's this speculation that Google's turning into a hardware company, that
Hmm.
it's migrating from where it started in search and extended to artificial intelligence and marketing and advertising, and now has this sort of string of hits. The Nexus 7 tablet for the 2013 version is just a beautiful uh, Retina-style display, uh, good improvements on the specs, and really improves upon the original launch. And I sadly cracked my Nexus 7, so I'm not able to use it anymore. But I guarantee I'm going to run out and find the new Nexus 7. It's a beautiful device. The Motorola X phone, the Moto X phone, is a fantastic phone. It's not launched under the Nexus brand, which is surprising, but it is a Google experience phone. It does not have a lot of cruft on it. Has good battery life. etc. Google Glass, which is not ready for prime time yet and is not really out of its development stage, and it is also not affordable at this point. It's still, $1,500. Chromebooks are becoming more popular as a solution. And last week, I believe it was, maybe the week before, but I think it was last week, during a press event where Sundar Pichai, I think his name's Sundar, launched the Nexus 7 and talked about some other upcoming things. They also launched this HDMI dongle called a Chromecast.
Mm-hmm.
And the
I believe that was
Chromecast.
2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry?
I believe
Yeah,
that was 2 weeks ago because I know somebody who ordered the Chromecast and got in just before the Netflix deal was pulled. So
Yeah, I think the people who ordered in the first 24 hours got the.
well, it was like I think the cutoff. I think it was only like 4 hours because they said it went on sale at 4 o'clock or 1 o'clock Pacific time, somewhere around there, and by 5, Amazon sent the thing saying 5:31 p.m. Pacific time was when. After that, they were gonna not honor the Netflix deal. So I think I saw it was only 4 hours. That's
Well,
how popular it was. And my coworker said
we're
he
talking
got.
about people have any idea what we're talking about.
Well, we'll get to it. But he ordered it probably like 8:20, so he got in like by 11 minutes. So all right, go ahead. Sorry, explain Chromecast and I forgot what else was introduced, but
The Nexus 7.
that's
So
right.
the Chromecast is an HDMI dongle. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, it plugs into an HDMI port, looks a lot like a USB key,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a mixture of a couple different Google technologies. It really replaces Google TV. Google TV will probably be dead. It has some components that are Chrome-based components, meaning that it allows Chrome to speak to it and render things as though it was a Chrome tab, Chrome being their browser. It also has elements of Android in its core, which allows it to do some of the more intense things with video, etc., that it does. And it also has connectivity. Did I just lose you?
No, I'm
Yeah,
trying
there.
to I'm trying to start a screen share to show our viewers what the Chromecast looks like.
Yeah, so
And
you can see on this end there's a USB port. A USB port is not for connectivity, it's for power.
right.
And the other end, of course, goes into your HDTV or projector or whatever else that you want to use your device with. And the point of this is that you then pick up your tablet or you pick up your laptop with Chrome running, and you have the Google Cast application running. And what it does is allows you to send whatever content you have in Chrome to this device and be rendered on the television through HDMI.
Excellent.
For $35. And the
Right,
$35
and
thing
that's
is what sent people reeling, because the closest thing to this is a Roku box or an Apple TV or a whole list of devices. And there are more elaborate versions of this and less elaborate versions of this, but this is not. If you are a cable cutter like me, a Roku is basically everything that you have. A Roku has its own channels, but it's limited to the channels that it has. So if I want to watch Amazon Video, I can because there's a channel on Roku for Amazon Video. If I want to watch Netflix, I can because there's a channel on the Roku for Netflix. If I want to watch YouTube, I cannot because YouTube does not have a channel on Roku.
Mm.
So specifically, the Chromecast talks about some key partnerships that it had, such as Netflix and YouTube, which of course is owned by Google, and but there are other ones, interestingly, that would not be able to be stopped according to the technology in place. And Google TV had a major setback because people who wanted to watch Hulu were blocked because Google TVs had an identifier that Hulu was able to say, if a request comes to watch content from Hulu.com from a Google television, ignore and deny the request, or deny the request, and block that device. Because Hulu would essentially have to block all traffic from any Chrome browser in order to block this kind of activity, they are not going to be able to block traffic to Hulu from a Chromecast.
Right.
So this solves a couple problems for getting certain kinds of content to the television, to the four corners of the TV immediately, in ways that you can't do without hooking up a computer. Now I happen to have two computers hooked up to my television, and I'm talking to you using my television in order to have this conversation. But most people don't do that, I don't think. I don't know, really. I don't have any statistics on it, but it would be much easier for me to have my television over there, or my television here, and my computer somewhere else where it was like less conspicuous, and just be able to send content over when I wanted to. Right?
Right. Sorry. Of course, you had to end as I was drinking. You knew that.
But what this doesn't do is it doesn't allow an application outside of Chrome necessarily the ability to send content over, I don't believe. But there is an API for Chromecast. So anybody who wants to develop for the ability to send content to a Chromecast theoretically can. Whether or not applications can make use of that, I'm not sure yet. Like, I don't know if I can open up VLC, for example, and send that content to Chrome. I bet you I could, honestly. To Chromecast, I should
I'm
say.
sure you'll figure it out.
Chances are somebody else will figure it out. If it was up to me, I don't think it would happen, but somebody else will probably do that. So it's just a very exciting time because for $35, if you have 3 TVs in your house, you can go out and for less than $100 equip them all with the ability to have internet content, not only video, but also just like the content of a tab show up on screen. So if I wanted to show a party gathering a website that I thought was really useful, or show them some, whatever image that I thought was really funny, or this happens sometimes, but usually it happens around a phone or a tablet. And when you have like 5 people trying to like look at the same 7-inch device, it's problematic. It's not great, and it's lessened. Whereas if I can have everybody look at this screen here and show them exactly the same content easily, that's a more enjoyable experience. And for $35, it's such an easy investment. The other thing to consider is Google's investment in this is not completely innocent, of course. They get to find out everything that you are watching on your TV by you doing this.
Right. Well.
Right? Because whatever content you send to it has to go to them first and then come back down to the Chromecast.
Yeah, well, everybody seems to know what everybody's doing online, so what does it matter at this point?
I'm not sure that it does, but it's notable, if somebody was to say, why is Google doing this? Why is Google giving away this hardware that does this great thing? Because they're not really giving it away. They're getting a lot in return for it.
Right. Okay, anything else you want to...
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm going to go through I have a feeling that we might have to cut this a little short tonight. I'm hearing some crying sounds coming from upstairs.
Okay.
So I think my son has been a little. Um, so what I wanted to talk about was just the study that I came across, and I really just thought it was interesting. And if I can get to my bloated script, as John mentioned, it's an article that was on the Southern California Public Radio website,
Uh-huh.
written by Mary Plummer, and discusses a study by New York City's The Wallace Foundation, titled "New Opportunities for Interest-Driven Arts Learning in a Digital Age," and it indicates that students are increasingly finding valuable exposure to arts education via technology outside of the classroom, and with budget cuts happening, especially in arts programs. The reports suggest that teachers and parents should use that to their advantage and bring arts education to children via this technology. So it basically talks about how young people are attached to their smartphones and tablets, and instead of trying to limit their time, embracing it and try to show them how these devices can create art, just not be media consumption devices, but media creation devices. So in the article, it
Which,
mentions a
by the
couple.
way, goes completely back to Arduino, etc.
Right, exactly. And a couple of things that the article mentioned was that the study says 85% of teens 15 to 18 years old own a cell phone, up from 56% in 2004. And nearly two-thirds of online teens create content such as blogs, artwork, original stories, etc., for consumption on the internet. So, and it also says that kids spend an average of 7 hours, 30 minutes a day with computers, cell phones, video games, TV, and other media. And that's according to another study by the Kaiser Family Foundation. But what was interesting is that they found that because children, or young people, I should say, because even kids a little slightly older than what you consider children, they consume more than one media at a time. It's like they're doing 10 hours and 45 minutes of media consumption in those 7.5 hours. So the basic premise of the study concluded that parents and arts educators should look for media that the children or the young people show most interest in, and use that to get them engaged in learning how to create in that medium. So, say, somebody listens to music a lot on their phone or iPod, and maybe introduce them to GarageBand or some other music creation, music production software, and get them to learn how to create music, and rather than just be an audience member, be a participator in that activity. So the study concludes with 5 basic challenges and opportunities, and I'll just list them here real quick. And that's embracing new technologies to locate youth that are interested in the arts, and like I said, connect them to helpful online resources. And also they talk about Kickstarter and crowdsourcing, and using that to fund arts projects for young people. Encourage portfolio practices, get them to document what they've created. Expand successful learning projects. Use organizations like Computer Clubhouse Network and UMedia as models to build a national infrastructure for supporting young, interest-driven arts participation among young people, particularly in urban communities and rural communities. Make the most of social media. Use social media as a way to share creative works and exhibiting works, and how to display those works online. Be a curator for your own works, and invest in research. Show them how to find resources where they can learn about the arts and learn about history and background and the reward of working in the creative arts. So I thought it was interesting, and it's something I've always thought about. With the proliferation of, oh, wow, I think I butchered that word, but with the technology becoming much more ubiquitous, to use it as a means to create art rather than just consume it. So with dwindling resources being diverted to away or diverted away from arts programs, I think it's something to think about.
Well, I think that this echoes a lot of the heroes that you and I have expressed our feelings about in the past, like Cory Doctorow and remix culture and
I was just kind of on a different tangent. I was I was getting my oil changed, and I looked at all these magazines on the wall that they had, and they had Entrepreneur magazine for August, and on the cover was Chris Hardwick, who
wow.
basically took his passion of being a geek and turned it into a massive industry, and now they're tied in with Legendary Pictures, the studio that was behind the Dark Knight series, and and now he's one of the major players in the entertainment world, and just by sheer will of making his geekdom an empire. He built an empire out of being in the Nerdist Industries, out of his love of all things geeky, and that's one instance where just having all this media available to him allowed him to do that by sheer will. I mean, it's amazing how that played out.
I find that the availability of these creation tools is not enough. There's got to be motivation that comes from somewhere, and this is one of the things. Next fall, I'm going to be teaching at Rider again, and my classes are essentially digital media creation classes for leaders. And the reason that we have to have those classes is because it is not a natural act to open up a video editor. It is not a natural act to go out and take photos for the purpose of communication.
It's not a natural act to get Google Hangouts on Airworking either.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where if you are exposed to how relatively easy it is to start to communicate with these tools, and it becomes an extension of your communication ability, the same way that writing is, the same way that the same way that you treat the way that you act in person with somebody else, your nonverbal communication. You can begin to think about video in the same way. You can begin to think about graphic creation or photographic creation or other visual media as an extension of your communication toolkit. We can do that now because there's not this huge threshold that we used to have. The act of what we're doing tonight, we've talked about it so many times, how low threshold it is to do what we're doing.
Right.
And comparative to 5 years ago, comparative to 10 years ago, comparative to 15 years ago, we would have had to have been a part of a multi-million-dollar industry in order to do this with any sort of quality 10 years ago. Well, 10 years ago is not that long ago, but there was a time when this would be impossible without a huge infrastructure and a huge amount of money for bandwidth and a huge amount of money for equipment and a huge amount of money for the structure underlying, and then the education behind it.
Yeah, but you're right, and we've talked about this exact scenario. I mean, when we were working at Rider, and we would have the webcast of commencement, and that was about 10 years ago. And how that was such a, and we could only have like 25 viewers or something like that, or because that was our limit. That was our, and now we this webcast to be watched by anybody,
Yeah.
you know, on YouTube.
Yep.
So
And I mean, YouTube, they're starting to differentiate between Google Hangouts and YouTube too. Now, I just heard that they lowered their threshold for live broadcasters on YouTube to you have to have 100 subscribers. But if you have 100 subscribers, you can broadcast live on YouTube now.
yeah, yep,
Mostly because it's just an extension of this technology.
right, right. So okay, well that was all I want to talk about tonight. I saw in the notes you talked about possibly doing a tutorial. Are you still up for that, or?
I am, but it sounds like maybe you have to attend to some things going on in your house.
Yeah, yeah, my 1-year-old. Just to update you uh, and the listeners, he had a little bit of a fall and
Oh.
he has some stitches in his head,
Oh.
uh, just above his left eye. But he's okay. I mean, but he has been getting up lately at night, and he has been sleeping pretty soundly. But and I keep been hearing some screaming, so he must have woken up in the past 10, 15 minutes or so.
Well, you should
But,
certainly go take care of that.
all right. Well, my wife is working on it. I have a feeling, but if it happens another time, I have a feeling she's going to come down and come corral me. So maybe we hold off on the tutorial for next time.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good idea.
So, all right. So if that's all for this week, I guess we'll be back next Monday night, 10 p.m. All right.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. And like I said, we'll figure out what we're going to do. I think last year we broadcast on the Tuesday night of Labor Day, but I'd be all for just getting off that week.
Yeah, I'm sure that we'll be fine.
So, all right. So we'll like I said, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So that concludes this episode of Technology in the Arts. Thank you for watching, and remember to visit us at technologyandthearts.com. Make sure to like us on Facebook, add us to your Google Plus circles, follow us on Twitter at tech_arts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/technologyandthearts, all one word. So we hope you will join us again when we return next week. For Technology in the Arts, this is Brian Kelly.
And John Lemazny. Thanks
Take
so
care.
much.